I'm Andrew, 35, from Boise, Idaho. I met Rachel at a mutual friend's wedding. She was vibrant, spontaneous, always the center of attention. I'm more low-key, stable job, small circle, early mornings. Opposites attract, I guess. We dated for a year before I bought a house, not just for me, but for us. She picked the neighborhood. She chose the paint colors. I put her name on the mailbox, even though the mortgage was mine. At first, it was perfect. Dinners on the patio, weekend hikes, her saying things like, "I've never felt this safe before." But after a while, she started to change. She began going out more, girls' nights, solo, wine tastings, spontaneous weekend trips. I supported it. I thought she just needed space. Then one night, I found her phone open on the counter. Not snooping, it lit up while I was grabbing water. A text from her friend read, "Why are you still with Andrew?" And she replied, "Because the house is nice. He's boring, but it's free living." I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands were shaking. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I quietly started gathering paperwork. The house was only in my name legally. The rest, mailbox name, utilities, even her belongings, was cosmetic. One Friday while she was at brunch, I boxed up her stuff, changed the locks, and left a printed copy of the mortgage agreement on the kitchen table. She came home furious. Screamed, cried, called me heartless. I calmly handed her a manila envelope and said, "I may be boring, but I'm not stupid." She moved out that weekend. The house feels quieter now. But also, finally, like mine. The first time I saw Rachel Martinez, she was laughing. Not just any laugh, the kind that draws every eye in the room, that makes strangers want to be part of whatever joke she's telling. She stood in a cluster of bridesmaids at my college friend Jason's wedding, her dark hair catching the light, champagne glass dangling carelessly from her fingers. I'm not the type who crosses a room to talk to a beautiful woman. But my friend Mark practically shoved me toward her. "Andrew, stop analyzing the situation to death and go say hello." When I introduced myself, Rachel's eyes lit up in a way that made me forget my rehearsed small talk. "The famous Andrew. Jason's told me about you. The responsible one who always drove everyone home." She leaned closer, her perfume something subtle and expensive. I've always had a thing for the designated driver. We exchanged numbers that night. I didn't expect her to text first, but she did, the very next morning. That was Rachel, impulsive, surprising, alive in a way that made my methodical existence feel suddenly dull by comparison. She was an event planner, always organizing something, always connected to someone interesting. She spoke Spanish when she called her family in Arizona, danced salsa like she'd been born doing it, and made friends with strangers in grocery store lines. I, on the other hand, had spent 8 years climbing the corporate ladder at an insurance company. I had a 401k and a 5-year plan. My idea of excitement was trying a new hiking trail on the weekend. "You're so steady," she told me on our third date, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I've dated so many guys who were exciting for a minute and then total chaos. You feel like solid ground." By month 3, she was staying at my apartment most nights. By month 6, half my closet was her clothes. When my lease renewal came up, it seemed natural to suggest we find a place together. "Actually," she said, curled against me on the couch, "what if we bought something? Interest rates are at an all-time low." The suggestion surprised me, it seemed sudden for a relationship still in its first year. But Rachel had a way of making impulsive decisions seem like the only logical choice. "I've always rented," she continued. "But I'm turning 30 next year. I want roots, you know. Something that's ours." I didn't miss how she said "ours," even though we both knew my savings account and credit score would be doing the heavy lifting. Rachel freelanced between bigger events, her income unpredictable at best. But the thought of building something permanent with her was intoxicating. So I found us a craftsman-style house in a neighborhood just north of downtown Boise. 3 bedrooms, a yard with mature trees, walking distance to the park where Rachel liked to run. The mortgage was a stretch but manageable on my income alone. "Are you sure your name shouldn't be on the paperwork?" I asked her the night before closing. "We could wait, do a joint application when your business is more established." Rachel kissed me, soft and lingering. "This works better for us right now. Your credit score is pristine, and mine is." She made a face. "Let's just say I wasn't always financially responsible. But I'll contribute in other ways. I'll make this house a home." And for a while, she did exactly that. Rachel had an eye for design that transformed empty rooms into magazine-worthy spaces. She found vintage furniture at estate sales, hung artwork from local artists, planted an herb garden that scented the kitchen. She hosted dinner parties where I met interesting people, musicians, artists, entrepreneurs. My life, once predictable, became vibrant. "You've changed," my mother commented during her first visit to the house. She said it with caution, as if unsure whether this was improvement or concern. "I'm happier," I told her, believing it completely. But something shifted around our first anniversary. It started small, Rachel staying out later than planned, being vague about her whereabouts. She'd always been social, but now her phone was perpetually buzzing with notifications she'd check with a slight frown before turning the screen away from me. "Work is crazy right now," she explained when I asked if everything was okay. "Fall wedding season. You know how it is." I didn't know, actually. Rachel had always shared the details of her events before: the demanding brides, the venue disasters narrowly averted, the celebrity clients she occasionally worked with. Now her answers were generic, changing the subject when I asked for specifics. Then came the girls' trips. Weekend getaways to Portland, Seattle, even Las Vegas, always organized at the last minute. "Melissa got a bonus and she's treating us all," she'd say, already packing a suitcase. Or, "Jen's going through a rough breakup and needs to get away." I never met these friends. They never came to our dinner parties or stopped by the house. When I pointed this out, Rachel laughed. "They're work friends, babe. Trust me, you'd be bored to tears listening to us talk about cake flavors and floral arrangements." I did trust her. I wanted to be the kind of boyfriend who didn't question, who didn't make her feel constrained. Rachel had chosen me partially because I wasn't controlling like her exes. So I swallowed my doubts and helped her pack for these mysterious trips, even driving her to the airport at ridiculous hours because that's what supportive partners do. One Thursday evening, after Rachel had been distant all week, I suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. A cabin in McCall, by the lake. Something to reconnect. "Oh, babe, I'd love to, but I can't this weekend," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Jen's hosting a wine-tasting tour in Walla Walla. It's been planned for ages." "You never mentioned it," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Didn't I?" She glanced up, brow furrowed. "I'm sure I did. Anyway, it's just Saturday to Sunday. We can do something when I get back." That night, while Rachel was in the shower, I heard her phone buzz on the kitchen counter. I wasn't looking for evidence. I wasn't that guy. But the screen lit up, and the preview of the text was visible without even touching the device. From someone named Allie: "Why are you still with Andrew?" I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. But something cold spread through my chest, and before I could think it through, I had picked up the phone. Rachel didn't have a passcode. She'd always said she had nothing to hide. Rachel's response to Allie was right there: "Because the house is nice. He's boring, but it's free living." The words blurred as I stared at them. My throat closed up. Free living. Boring. I scrolled up, hands shaking. "Girl, you've been complaining about him for months," Allie had written earlier. "Just move in with Jason already. He's way more your speed. Jason. My college friend Jason. The one whose wedding where we'd met. Jay's place is tiny, Rachel had replied. And he's between jobs again. Andrew's house is in the perfect location, and he's never home anyway. He works, goes to the gym, sleeps. I basically have the place to myself. I set the phone down exactly as I'd found it when I heard the shower turn off. I moved to the living room and pretended to watch television, blood pounding in my ears. That night, lying next to Rachel in the dark, I replayed every moment of our relationship, searching for signs I'd missed. Had it all been calculated? Had she identified me as an easy mark at that wedding, the stable guy with savings, the designated driver she could exploit? The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. As soon as Rachel left for a client meeting, I began my research. I pulled out all the paperwork for the house purchase, confirming what I already knew, my name alone on the mortgage, the deed, everything. I checked our utility bills, all in my name, with Rachel occasionally transferring me money for her half, although the amounts had become smaller and less frequent over time. I went through our photos together, seeing them with new eyes. The selfies she'd posted of us, always tagged with "love my life" and "couldn't be happier," had those been for show? Creating a public narrative while she built her exit strategy? That weekend, Rachel went on her wine-tasting trip. While she was gone, I drove to a hardware store 2 towns over and had new keys made for every door in the house. I bought security cameras that connected to my phone. I went through her belongings methodically, separating what she'd brought into the relationship from what I'd purchased for her. In her desk drawer, I found a small notebook. Inside were calculations, her income, her expenses, how much she was saving by living with me. It was all there in her looping handwriting. A cost-benefit analysis of our relationship, with a pro/con list about me. Pros: stable, good job, owns house, doesn't ask too many questions, easy to manage. Cons: boring, routine, no spontaneity, wants marriage eventually. The last entry was dated just a week earlier. Jay says his startup might get funding. Wait it out or move now. I felt physically ill. For the rest of the weekend, I boxed her things: clothes, jewelry, books, electronics. Everything that was unquestionably hers. I left her furniture and the decorative items that blurred the line of ownership. I contacted a lawyer friend who advised me on tenant rights. Technically, Rachel had established residency, but without a formal lease and with no proof of regular rent payment, my position was strong. Still, to avoid complications, I wrote her a check for $3,000, relocation assistance, my lawyer called it. On Sunday night, Rachel returned, smelling of unfamiliar cologne and looking relaxed in a way she hadn't been with me in months. I said nothing about what I'd discovered. I kissed her hello and asked about her trip. I sat through dinner while she invented elaborate details about wineries that probably didn't exist. I'm exhausted, she said finally. I think I'll take a bath and go to bed early. Sounds good, I replied, casual as could be. I have some emails to catch up on anyway. The next morning, I left before she woke up. I texted her that I had an early meeting and would be working late. Throughout the day, I had deliveries sent to the house, a locksmith to change the external locks while she was out at her standing lunch date, a security company to update the alarm code. At 3:42 p.m., while Rachel was at brunch with friends, according to her text, I returned home. The locksmith had done his job. My key still worked, hers no longer would. I placed the boxes of her belongings in the garage, carefully labeled. On the kitchen table, I left a folder containing 1. A printed copy of the mortgage agreement with my name highlighted. 2. Screenshots of her text conversation with Allie. 3. A photo of her notebook calculations. 4. The relocation check. 5. A letter from my lawyer outlining that she had no legal claim to the property. 6. A new garage door opener program to work for 72 hours only, long enough for her to collect her things. At 5:18 p.m., I received a frantic call from Rachel. She couldn't get in the front door. Her key wasn't working. Was I home? Could I let her in? Check the garage, I said calmly. The side door should be open. 20 minutes of silence. Then the storm hit. She burst through the door from the garage, face flushed with anger. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, the folder clutched in her hand, papers spilling out. "You went through my phone. My personal things. You're kicking me out. You can't do this." I remained seated at the kitchen island, hands folded in front of me. "Actually, I can. And I have. This is my home." Tears now, right on cue. Rachel had always been able to cry on command, a talent I'd once found endearing when she used it to get us free desserts or better tables at restaurants. "No, Rachel. It's my home. You made that very clear to Allie." I kept my voice even. "And to Jason, apparently." Her face changed then, the hurt act dropping away. "Jason? What are you talking about? Please don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else. Your notebook mentioned him. And his convenient startup funding." She laughed, a harsh sound. "You really think you know everything, don't you? Jason and I aren't." "I don't care what you and Jason are or aren't," I interrupted. "I cared about what you and I were." Past tense. "Andrew, be reasonable. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. The check should cover temporary accommodations while you figure it out. You have 3 days to collect your things from the garage. After that, anything remaining becomes my property." She stared at me, recalibrating. Rachel had always been quick, always able to adjust her approach when one strategy failed. I could see her considering her angles, legal threats, emotional appeals, perhaps offering physical reconciliation. "You know what?" she said finally. "Keep it all. Keep the house, keep my stuff. I never wanted any of this boring suburban life anyway. This was all a huge mistake." I nodded. "On that, we agree." She stormed toward the door, then turned back, eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what's coming." I calmly handed her a manila envelope, the final item I'd prepared. "I may be boring," I said quietly. "But I'm not stupid." Inside was evidence I'd gathered of her using our joint checking account for personal expenses while contributing nothing, technically financial fraud since her name wasn't on the mortgage or bills. Not enough for criminal charges, but enough for small claims court if she decided to make trouble. She left that night. I watched through the new security cameras as she pulled away in her car, phone already pressed to her ear, calling Jason, presumably. The silence that followed was deafening. I walked through rooms that suddenly felt too large, too empty. Rachel's decorating touches were everywhere, the art she'd chosen, the paint colors she'd insisted on, the expensive coffee maker she'd convinced me we needed. For a moment, doubt crept in. Had I overreacted? Then I remembered her cold calculations, the months of lies, the casual cruelty of discussing me with her friends, and possibly my own friend, as nothing more than convenience, a financial stepping stone. Rachel returned once, 2 days later, with a rental truck and 2 friends I'd never seen before. They loaded her box belongings while I watched from the kitchen window. She never came to the door, never looked toward the house. When they finished, she slammed the garage door with unnecessary force and was gone. In the weeks that followed, I methodically reclaimed my space. I repainted the living room, replaced the artwork with pieces I actually liked, rearranged the furniture. I blocked Rachel on all platforms and asked mutual friends not to mention her. Most respected this, and several admitted they'd had concerns about her but hadn't known how to tell me. 6 months later, I ran into Jason at a coffee shop downtown. The encounter was awkward, tense. "I should have told you," he said finally. Rachel and I, it wasn't what you think. We weren't having an affair. She was helping me plan a surprise for my wife's birthday when she'd come over. I sipped my coffee, saying nothing. But she did talk about you, he continued, uncomfortable under my steady gaze. She said things that, as your friend, I should have questioned. I'm sorry about that. Where is she now? I found myself asking, hating that I still wanted to know. Jason hesitated. She left Boise. Some job in Seattle. Event planning for a tech company, I think. I nodded and stood to leave. Andrew, he called after me. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Maybe I did. The house feels quieter now. But also, finally, like mine. Sometimes at night, I still wake up reaching for her side of the bed. Old habits. But then I remember the look on her face when she realized I wasn't the passive, predictable man she'd calculated me to be. And I sleep a little easier, knowing that while love might make fools of us all, I refuse to remain one.